We are excited now to bring on a panel that will feature our ground champions in healthcare in the field of nursing, medical social work, social care and medicine. Unlike our all-male panel that we had yesterday, in which we did draw attention to, the manel, I'm delighted now to introduce an all-female panel, and I'm still not sure what to call that. A feminal, anyway. Wonderful, 4 wonderful women who are going to come and really talk to us about the challenges they face in bringing AI to life in their fields. And they're very honest, down-to-earth people. They're going to share the gritty side, yeah? The mistakes and the challenges they've also experienced when trying to adopt AI to solve their challenges. But first of all, we will invite the not-so-female moderator of the panel, Goh Kim Huat, from Nanyang Business School, on stage, please.
Hi, everyone. I like the way I was being described, the not-so-female moderator. I think my chromosome should be XY. So, right, last time I checked. Anyway, today we have 4 esteemed panelists that sort of provide a different perspective towards how AI works within their organizations. I think the last couple of days, or rather last couple of sessions, you have seen the promises of AI. The title of the panel today is From Rare Field to Regular. So henceforth is to showcase how AI works within the various contexts and settings within the organizations. So let me right now introduce and invite the panelists on the stage here. Although it's a bit strange, the stage is at the bottom of this place. Let's take a seat. All right, so maybe I will describe the format for the panel. What I will do is that for each of the panelists, they will be briefly describing, right, the activities AI activities that they have undertaken within the organizations. They have about 7 minutes each to cover these various innovations within the organizations. And at the same time, you do see the QR code up there. This is where the audience over here could be keyboard warriors, provide with all the questions that you have for them. And what I will do is that we will moderate and we open the floor for questions after each of the panelists have taken their presentation. All right. So I will briefly introduce 4 of them. Of course, they will definitely get in greater details about themselves. We have Dr. Charlene Liew, right, from Changi General Hospital. We have Sally Lim from IHH. We have Melissa Chew from Woodlands Health. And finally, Karen Wee from the Lions Befrienders. All right. So over to Dr. Charlene. And of course, then thereafter, do get your questions coming via the QR code as well.
Hi, everyone. Very good afternoon. So this is my chance to do my pitch from yesterday, but very nice to meet all of you. So I'm going to start off with showing you 2 articles that were published last year in 2 very prominent broadsheets. The first is the Washington Post. The headline this year, Be Thankful for AI in Medicine. So a large proportion of healthcare, especially in radiology, where I work, is like finding that proverbial needle in a haystack. For example, for mammography, which is detecting breast cancer, a good cancer detection rate is 6 per 1,000 women screened. So authors and researchers have now suggested a radical model in which we can actually divide the tasks in healthcare, which is complete separation. Having AI handle routine tasks independently, such as normal chest x-rays or low-risk mammography, while doctors focus on more complex disorders or rare conditions with atypical features. Now, the second broadsheet was the New York Times, entitled The Robot Doctor Will See You Now, written by a very good friend, Pranav. So essentially, they shared a series of research publications. And one which was cited was an MIT study that showed that AI independently to diagnose patients achieved a 90% accuracy rate. Physicians that used AI were only 76% accurate, and they were only slightly better than 74%, which was achieved without AI. So now this begs the question, can we actually work alongside AI, each of us doing our own task, separate but synergistically? And we've been working on this research ourselves, and we have proposed a new model. Instead of human in the loop, we can have human in a parallel loop. So in Changi General Hospital, we have various projects ranging from those in ideation, stage, design, development, to validation, and finally deployment. As you can see, this is a repository that was taken from our website. And one of the highlighted projects which I'd like to share with you is where we use a program developed by a South Korean company called Lunit. And essentially, it is able to screen chest X-rays, 10 radiological findings with a 97 to 99% accuracy. So as you can see here, this is a screenshot from our radiology PACS system. And now we have been able to triage the work list according to urgency of findings on the report. We are also able to generate the text of the report, as you can see, automatically. So this was able to save a considerable amount of time. So in a prospective controlled trial that we conducted, we had 43 radiologists, all blinded to AI results, and they assessed chest X-rays categorized into normal, non-urgent, and urgent using a 3-tier performance classification system. And the performance metrics were analyzed, and it actually showed, I would like to highlight this, one of these results, which is the negative predictive value of urgent cases, which actually achieved 98%. Now, this is very useful when we're trying to actually screen normal chest X-rays. And this is indeed exactly how we're planning to apply it in real world. So we've now designed a system where normal chest X-rays are selected from the pile of X-rays, and they are actually given to radiologists to cross-check before they are signed out. And in doing so, we can actually give more responsibility to the AI, but still have a human in a loop, but working in parallel. And finally, we have also a hip fracture detection algorithm, which was developed by our team. Some of the other things that we're doing is to use generative AI. So the other cases I highlighted earlier were narrow-based AI, but now we're also moving into Gen AI. And here I just give a frightening example of when I was actually teaching a resident, and I used a commercial chatbot, and it actually gave me a whole bunch of nonsensical answers. But the problem is, the answers sounded very confident. It sounded like a radiologist, and it even helpfully included a thumbnail of the wrong study. So how do we actually use Gen AI? We know that it's a very powerful tool. So we have a series of whitelisted chatbots or generative AIs, which we actually use in hospitals. So in our institution, we have been using pair.gov.sg. It's been developed by OpenGov. And as you can see here, it is a no-code assistant. And this is actually something I built myself. I am by no means a programmer. And so with a few lines of English language instructions, I was able to develop an assistant that could look at our department guidelines for lung nodule follow-up. And I did this in 10 minutes. And so a chat assistant is born. And in fact, we have been beta testing it with our residents. And so far, it's been working well. Okay, I'd like to highlight in the last 45 seconds the rise of agents. So this is something we're also exploring in our hospital. So essentially, what is the difference between an agent and generative AI? So generative AI is creative. So it creates language, it creates words, it creates passages of text. But an agent focuses on doing. So it is task-oriented. And beside that, it can use tools, any tool. And also orchestrate the use of tools. So for example, you have here a medical AI agent that is able to search the web for findings, search results. It can look at your electronic health records for text data on the patient. It can also look at, let's say, radiological imaging records for other data, and then it can orchestrate all of that information and then pass it on to human supervisors. So this is the next paradigm that we're looking at, which is agentic AI. So finally, are AI agents the silver bullet? We have yet to tell. The advantage of using agents is that we have finally an end-to-end solution, not piecemeal, not narrow AI. Will these agents be safe and human enough to be onboarded via the usual HR processes? Only time will tell. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Charlene. So our next panelist is Sally Lim from IHH, which will give you a private practice perspective of AI.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. First, I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity to share our AI-powered nurse rostering system. From IHH Healthcare Singapore. We are the largest private healthcare operator in Singapore. We have about 5,000 staff with us. Besides the 4 hospitals, we have many other business entities. And worldwide, we have about 80 hospitals across 10 countries. AI is not something new to us. Back in 2003, we have already started our first AI solution, Fee Advisors. Fee Advisors is a bill estimator for us to do financial counseling with the patient. With this introduction, our bill estimation accuracy has increased from 23% all the way up to 89%. And the time taken for financial counseling has reduced significantly from 40 to 25 minutes. Subsequently, 4 other clinical systems was introduced. And for nursing, we have introduced our Nurse Shift AI in June 2024. And by the end of 2024 December, it has been rolled out in all our 4 hospitals. This is a collaboration between the nursing team and the data scientists from our business analytic team. Okay, it would not be possible if it's not a collaboration between the 2 teams. So why do we want to look at AI rostering? I believe those of you who have done rostering will know that manual roster is a very tedious task. Okay, you have to look at regulation, policies, ensure that there's a good mix of staff, throughout all the shift. And sometimes, because of other duties, the roster may come up very late. And there's a lot of last-minute changes that you have to scramble over with. Okay? Likewise, these days, a lot is being focused on work-life balance. So you need to give special preferences to the staff needs, ad hoc requests, as well as those on flexi work arrangement. So this is our roadmap. We started in January 2023. Okay, in the beginning, we need to gather a lot and lots of data. Okay, the past 1 year roster, the skills level, shift patterns, and individual staff profile. And we have done that, and we started our first pilot rostering in January 2024. And we fine-tuned it and finally roll out in all the hospitals by the end of December 2024. So we have moved from an auto-calculation Excel spreadsheet, which was actually created by one of the ex-nurse, Nicole, into our AI solution, which consists of 2 applications, a planner as well as a Nurse Connect Plus, which is a request system, and the roster, once it's published, will be shown in that system as well. Now, I'd like to show you a video that the nurses have created regarding this system. And this is sort of a summary of our AI system. It's now in use for over 2,700 of nursing staff in the 4 hospitals in Singapore. Besides this, our radiographer team has also started testing out this rostering system for themselves, as well as our nurses in Gleneagles, Hong Kong. And inside this AI shift for the nursing departments, we have 117 shift patterns, 139 roster rules, 90 unique skill set, and up to 87% of the shift requests are now being fulfilled. Okay, in the pre and post implementation survey, it shows that the difficulty in ensuring appropriate skill levels has decreased from 89 to 26. Percentage of shift requests not granted has also dropped from 32 to 19. And the average time taken to complete or to do a roster planning has reduced by half. So my takeaway message is AIs can significantly increase our efficiency and accuracy. Collaboration is very important because each team will not be able to do it without the other. And start small so that you've got time to make adjustment, correction, and before you scale up, okay? And communication, communication, and communication. Make sure every stakeholders are aware of what is happening and everybody will be on the same page. Finally, you must always look at continuous improvement. So we have a dashboard to monitor the function so that we can continuously improve it. Thank you.
All right, so in addition to seeing AI within clinical settings, it's also important to see that we do have AI innovation in allied health and the other aspects of healthcare. Our next speaker, Melissa Chew, it's from Woodlands Health, that will represent the medical social work. And over to you, Melissa.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here today. So my name is Melissa, so we have moved from medical to nursing and now social work. So social work by itself, we all know, is a soft science. So how do we then use AI to bridge the gap for better patients' care? So other than the fact I'm a Woodlands Health medical social worker, I'm also the project lead for Care 360, which is actually the national social work case management system. And this is where Scribe was born. So we all know AI has always been linked to hard sciences. So social work, as you may have worked with social workers before, we are the soft science, soft skills, counseling, psychosocial support. bring support to patients and their family members. So can we really use AI in social work? So to give a brief background, as mentioned, social workers, we look very much at the psychosocial issues. Very many a times, there are family issues, interpersonal issues, a lot of emotions ongoing. So can AI help in our work? So CARE 360 was our case management system. And as we work with our developer, Open Government Products, they realized that, hey, the social workers have another problem, which is actually the amount of time we spend documenting. Now, as we deal with patients' emotions, a lot of our sessions last about an hour or more. And documentation by itself looks at about 45 minutes to another hour. And this takes up a lot of our clinical time. Hearing about social workers being burned out, working overtime is not uncommon. The other thing is, as mentioned, when you're dealing with people's emotions, eye contact is very important. Now, can you imagine, before Scribe came about, we are busy typing on our laptops, taking down all the notes, or busy writing. It is also very distracting as the social worker handling the case, but it's also very distracting for the patients and their families. So this was something that we decided we need to work with OGP to resolve. So we asked OGP, we were a little bit demanding, and we say we need to be portable. One, we need to handle patients in infectious control setting. We need to be able to meet infectious control guidelines. We do home visits. We need to deal with all the noise and whatever not. Now, the other thing is we chair family conference, multiple people talking at the same time. So we wanted a speech-to-text summarization tool. We need some way of actually capture whoever is saying what. Another thing we asked for is local languages and local dialects. And we asked whether the AI can also tell us, through the words used, what is the emotional state of the speakers, help us to generate summaries that we can put into our clinical notes. We did ask, well, can it interpret body language, but speech-to-text, so not possible. But most important, how to help in our assessment and intervention. So together with OGP and the other 3 clusters, so this is actually a cross-cluster project. Scribe was born last year, and by November 2024, all public healthcare institutions, social work departments are using Scribe. So what Scribe can do? Portable and secure. Using a mobile device, you can actually just start the session, and it's actually not onto your phone, it's uploaded immediately to a secure place. It can also recognize most local languages and dialects. Their Cantonese is better than our Cantonese. Some of the social workers commented. And access, no issue. Very meaningful summaries, making sure no details is lost. And through the words that the patient used, they can actually even prompt you, with the clinical assessment and intervention. Now, sometimes our sessions are so long, we sort of, maybe miss out certain things that we need to follow up through. And actually, through the summary, it actually prompts us that there are things that we can follow up on. So outcome, 38.7% reduction in documentation time. So there is approximately about 18 minutes per session. Now, sometimes it goes up even to higher, to about 60%. It could be due to various reasons, the type of conversation, and sometimes we want to rechange certain things we write. Of course, the social workers are happy. Patients and families are very excited. I got one patient, we need to take consent before we start describing, and the patient actually ended up talking 10 minutes about AI with me, and I had to stop him and say, hey, this session is for you, about your emotional coping, not about AI. Now, I've used it on an 80-year-old, very cute lady, same interest. And together with the assistance from OGP, they knew that it was successful with us. They have brought it to the community-based social workers, even as we speak. They are already using it, and it has been in the news already. And in May, for A&G Health, we have moved it beyond the social profession into the medical, nursing, dietetics, psychology, and even operation. And this is something that we are very thankful for. Now, to end off, we are going to show you all a video that we actually made to actually share about Scribe.
Hi, I'm Yuyan. I'm a medical social worker in Tham Kok Leong Hospital, and I use Scribe. One of the main challenges that we face is in our documentation for our patients. Each session will probably last about 45 minutes to 1 hour. Patients or their family members have a lot of things to tell us. After that, when we try to do our documentation, there's so much more that we have to write and recall what was discussed. Previously, pen and paper, it took about maybe half an hour to 45 minutes. Now with Scribe, probably take about 5 minutes. I think the most impressive feature about Scribe is it can recognize our local languages, our English, our dialect. That really helps me when I'm speaking to patients or family members and they interject the session with these terms. And I go back to office and I look back at Scribe. It does help and it does show that it understands what had happened in the session.
So Scribe is really designed with the local context in mind. A lot of transcription tools out there, they can't really handle things like Singlish or your local lingo, your Kway Chap, your Hokkien Mee, all that.
你好唔好啊？今日有冇落雨啊？今日好凍啊，有冇啊？ One concern about using AI previously that I had was privacy issues. Could we use it safely in a hospital setting when we had a lot of privacy and confidentiality considerations? Because it is developed by OGP, that gave me the confidence that all these issues would be taken into consideration. So I'm really glad that I started using Scribe. I would like to encourage everybody else, for those who are not using AI, just try it out, be amazed by it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Melissa. So our last speaker also would share her perspective in regards to AI within the non-clinical setting. She comes from an NGO. We have Karen Wee from Lions Befrienders, which will provide her perspective. And at the same time, a reminder to the participants, there is a QR code up there. Do take a snapshot of that and provide us with any questions that you have for our panelists over here. Yeah.
Hi, thank you. And a very good afternoon to all of us. I know I'm between you and tea break, and I think people are falling asleep already. So I'll make it quick. But most importantly, this is not about technical AI, but rather to share the journey and to inspire, hopefully, to convert those who are not converted. I have a question here. And taking the cue from Face Off, how many of us see the similarity between AI journey and the movie Rocky? Yes, aha. Yep. Why? Okay. The journey for AI is not easy. Just like Rocky, we have no budget, no loud applause, and no supporters when we started the journey in 2020. But lots of negative and a lot of challenges. However, like Rocky, what did all of us do in our journey in AI here? Not just ourselves, but everyone. You actually got hit, but you got up and you kept the fight going. And therefore, during the COVID period, that's when AI expedited and evolved within a matter of 5 years to a mega transformation. And today, we share with you Lions Befrienders' journey in being the first to move, the first to learn, with the grit and the heart to transform using AI in elder care and social services in Singapore. Allow me to share our journey. Why the leap? Very much our vision is actually to help seniors age well at home and die in place, okay, rather age well in place, and basically to make sure that all of them have good quality of life. Secondly is to ignite dreams and inspiring generations. And for us, AI actually for another reason is to keep our manpower costs low, increase productivity. In 2020, before we started using AI, 130 staff were serving 6,500 seniors with support of 1,400 volunteers. With AI and lots of automation, we increased by 20 staff in a matter of 4 years to 150 staff to serve double the number of seniors from 6,500 to 13,000 seniors with 1,000 volunteers, of which 400 of them are seniors who are being served. We ask them to step up. This helps in our operations because our weekend programs, as well as after-6 programs, are fully run by the seniors themselves. And we have extended to also trips during weekdays are all fully run by the seniors. This helps us to relieve our manpower as we have been tasked to design, as well as to ramp up to 27,000 seniors by 2030 under the mandate of MOH. On top of that, we are leading 4 ICCPs, which means that we also will be responsible indirectly for 4 zones out of the 85 zones in elder care. Total, in 85 zones, there'll be 1 million seniors. So this means not just our own organization, but looking at taxpayers, this is how much you're going to save. I've only got 4 minutes left, so I'll make the slide a bit faster, sorry. And I'm not very good at clicking this as well. Okay, early steps. Oh, some parts were missing, never mind. We started with hope and uncertainty. First mover to do it. We partner with tech companies, social workers, but we were asked, can a machine do better? And can it detect mental health? However, there was no precedent in Singapore social service and elder care. The technology was already available and commercial. However, nobody wanted to look at it or even consider it, though it was on NCSS website for 2 years. Why the skepticism? Because nobody believes that human can intervene. Oh, sorry, nobody can believe that AI can intervene in human diagnosis. The middle of the path, actually, the pain, resistance, and the breakthroughs, these are painful. Now, and pain points, clinical staff actually resisted during transformation. The technology worked, but people had to believe in it. And then the clinical staff and volunteers were concerned that this AI will replace their jobs in the long run. Facial analysis also required unmasked faces because technically the AI says, I need 49 points, and during the COVID period, we had to wear masks, which means that technically there were a lot of inaccuracy, and we need to remove the mask. So, to our funder, we had to deliver 4,300 test subjects or clients in 24 months. The first 6 months, we reported 0. And then our funder, Temasek, asked, do you want two things? Do you want to extend the timeline, or do you want to reduce KPIs? So for us at Lions Befrienders, we took up the challenge. We said, no, we'll deliver on time, on target, all your 4,300 in the remaining 18 months. What we delivered was more than that. We delivered 4,300 seniors plus 2,000 children in the schools in the remaining 18 months. But it was hell for the team. So having said that, it means that nothing is impossible, and on top of that, it means the fight is ongoing. Okay, I've got 1 minute, so I'll be quick. 2 minutes. Okay, so AI helps to identify the mental health before a crisis, and that article was our journey in 2021. After we successfully launched it, we were awarded in November 2020. So the joys and wins is to humanize innovation. We didn't just digitize care. We scaled it to community and allowed for early mass screening. And this is the importance of all innovation. If we do not scale into the community, technology will die off. That's how a lot of pilots drop off, why that's a lot of startups also fail to deliver. And who's going to support startups and technology if the pilots fail? If it doesn't scale and doesn't go into community, what good is it? Those are questions we all ask ourselves. So for every one successful pilot that scaled, I think at least about 50 to 100 will have already died off. That's part of life. Okay, so for this one, you'll see that we use the AI into another program. We didn't just look for a program for AI. Actually, we developed programs around the AI. So we moved it into this thing called SafePod, which is mental health, wellness in Queenstown, and we had collaboration. AI is just a screening tool, but at that point in time, and up to today, we have at least 200 counselors at any point in time, and all of them have to be at least a diploma, degree, or master's in counseling, or else they cannot do the second part, which is the intervention. So with this innovation of AI, we are able to reduce the time needed for screening. We don't need to have a staff or social worker with 3 years experience or having a supervisor to supervise them. We are able to go through the protocol, even for new staff within 1 week of their onboarding, run through the rigorous protocol with them, and then they train. And on top of that, for the system AI, it took only about 5 to 10 minutes for early assessment. We could cut off at 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And then that's only because it's early screening. And then move them on according to the category, whether it's severe, which is, if it's suicidal, we have to refer back to the hospitals. And then if not, we have to refer to the counselors or the para-counselors. Okay. Moving forward, we always believe that for AI to succeed, it has to be hybrid. You saw in the face-off, okay? And basically what it means is AI tech is only best for large-scale pre-screening in what we believe and early detection, whereby it increases the access and supplements the clinician. When it comes to traditional style, which is high touch. You need it for deep therapeutic relationships, complex diagnosis, and culturally sensitive engagement. Because the AI today is not that ready. But in time to come, who's to say in 10 years' time, it might be even be able to reach that. There are also limitations, so for us, we always believe in hybrid. The lessons learned from AI and innovation is we need three things. It always begins with trust. It's not about technology. And we need courage, just as Rocky had. We need culture to make it into relevant context, and we make it to the community. AI must always be guided by humans, ethically grounded and purpose-driven. It has to include everybody, from the aunties to the analyst. Because AI, you use a lot of data to fit in, to make it smarter, you definitely have to include everyone. And innovation is not about department. Innovation doesn't come under the ambit of IT. It is actually a mindset. It is a part of our DNA. It should be part of all of us. And the goal is not about speed, it's about sustainability. And I show these articles by the site, on the right-hand side, is to show that while the technology evolves, we have been constantly in, let's say, the space of mental health, because we only took the articles from the press, where we were covered over the years. This one was covered, I believe, 2024. The first one was 2021. It showed that we have been using AI for the longest time, at least the last 4 to 5 years. But the technology that we use behind changes, which means we are not stuck to one earlier version of AI. We're agnostic. Okay, I've got 2 more slides and we're off. Okay, for closing, the path forward, technically, AI is not the end. It's only a tool to restore dignity at scale for others to also be able to learn together as a community. We will then replicate and then grow it. What is the real innovation? It's still about human. It's still about expanding AI into other fields. Early on, you saw all those newspaper articles. They were all related to AI for mental health. This is AI for voice, for calls. Now, like Rocky, remember this. The first one that goes through the wall always gets bloody. Okay? But to any one of us thinking of going first, it was not easy. But it'll be worth it. But once you take that step, you'll find you are not alone anymore. You look at him winning the gold, the championship. It is teamwork. So using AI is not about us and the clients per se. It's about teamwork. It's about collaboration. It's about having an open mind. And then on the other side of the article, it's also showing, which is the most recent one, July, I think it was this week, Monday, using AI for sensor project. And that project alone started in 2020. So today, LB is into phase 2 and going on to phase 3 with the partners. So over the 5 years, this is the evolution of AI. This one is selling koyok. Okay, so on the 25th of July, if you could come and join us for 2 things. Not about technology, yeah, but more likely, and we hope to transform mindset and ComCare landscape and inspire the next generation to continue to build a better and stronger society. And why we put our GOH is Madam Rohayu, but why we put her? Because she's at a crossroad of both health as well as technology. And this is the year of SG60. We want to build on the shoulders of our previous predecessors and our previous generation and pioneers to carry technology as well as to carry the country forward. In the time when LKY, when we had 1965, when nobody believed that Singapore can do it, we did it. So 60 years from there, Singapore is a first world country. And it took the generation, one generation, to build Singapore from a third world to a first world. So who is to say that we cannot have the next generation of AI immediately and help us innovate even faster and transform our society? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. So we'll move over to our Q&A session, all right? Even though, and then again, there's QR codes up there. Do send your questions in, and I will summarize them, and of course, direct them to the panelists over here. So before the panel was convened, I was also informed by the organizers that the first question would be given to AI. So even though we do not have an AI panelist over here, a question was being generated by AI, and actually it's a paradoxical question, right? And the question goes something like this, right? If you look at all the promises that we have seen so far about AI, it's about removing mundane, less exciting work from the human and therefore leaving the individuals, the humans, to do more critical, more challenging work, right? So for example, the scribe we've seen earlier, like automation of reading x-rays and so on. However, there is actually a paradox here because as this proceeds, does it lead to individuals or humans being relegated to work on tasks which are a little bit more challenging and therefore increases the stress of individuals? It's a little bit like, having cell phones is great, but when you're connected to a cell phone 24/7, it creates stress. So what should be guardrails and where should we draw the line? All right. And these questions, again, is paradoxical because the AI is generating a difficult question for them, right, to answer at this point in time. All right. Over to the panelists. So what are your ideas or your views on this?
Okay, so I cheated. I used ChatGPT before I came.
So
Yes.
it's easier now for you.
Well, I kind of like the answer they gave because I think Dr. Charlene and I had a conversation just before the start. Actually, AI is helping us to do catch-up. We have all been burnt out, overloaded with our work. And even though, as we talk about it, we know that aging population, increasing needs of healthcare is needed. So AI is not about giving us more work because we are getting more work and we are still doing catch-up. So at the end of the day, AI is helping us to actually to try to give ourselves a little bit of breather. So I think Scribe by itself is that. So I kind of like the ChatGPT answer you gave me. So I thought, yeah, let me start with the ChatGPT answer. Yeah, I don't know, Dr. Charlene, do you want to add on?
Yeah, I agree with Melissa. So it depends on whether you're looking at the question from the perspective of abundance or scarcity. So in healthcare, we are in an environment of scarcity. There's not enough resources. And so AI is helping us to bring down the workload. And if you think that in healthcare, actually time is very important. So an example in radiology is AI can make the difference between you getting your report in a week's time and in 4 hours' time. And in fact, we showed in our research a similar reduction in percentage terms. So the question is, do you want your medical results to come to you in 4 hours, or you want it to come in 4 weeks? Do you want your appointment to be 6 months' time, or you want it in 2 weeks' time? So I think it's a relative, I think the answer is it's relative to where you're looking at the problem from. So the perspective is important.
If there's no further questions from the floor, then I will continue to answer this. I will share my perspective.
Yes, sure, yeah.
All right. So for me, maybe personally, I take a different view with AI and work. The question is, there's a lot of tools available in the world. Question is what you make out of it. So how you use AI and whether it helps you to squeeze more productivity or not depends on how you craft it and how you used it. So for us, when we scale, if we didn't have the AI for mental health, we will not be able to scale 4,300 seniors plus 2,000 children, total 6,300 in 18 months. And then we also had cases that were escalated up to having depression, etc. And this just came from the community and also from people who did not want to admit it. So it depends how you look at it. Whereas traditionally, in 18 months, if you look at one patient, you take about 1 hour to do the assessment whether a person has issues with mental health. That's 1 full hour of pre-screening. So it all depends, and so I have a different view in that aspect. Thank you.
For nursing, it's not so much of increasing in productivity, but how we use our time more effectively. Making roster manually is really a very tedious task. Having AI to do that part for us increase efficiency by a lot more. So to us, those time, we can use it to provide better quality care to the patient, which will be safer and also bring up the standards. And for nursing leaders, they will have more quality time with their staff. So all in all, I still think that AI is very useful to us, and it will really help us to increase our efficiency by a lot.
All right, thank you very much. And now let's compare the questions from AI with the questions from the humans on the floor, the audience over here, right? There are multiple questions over here. I'm trying to summarize some of them. There's one question which is particularly quite interesting here because it asks the question about rostering, right? Back to Sally's point. And here it says that roster planning, all right, is difficult because it has political ad hoc human factors. There's historical practices, preferences, and personal quirks. So how does the AI handles that? But before you answer that, there's also a related question here, which is much more of a polemic as well. It's related to this. It's about very often when we look at implementation of AI, there is a sort of like a top-down kind of approach, right, whereby it's hierarchical. And so how should we implement AI or come up with ideas of AI in a way that politics does not come to play? How do you manage that hierarchy? And it's a polemic, it's a tough question. Maybe I could have the panelists give their ideas, maybe starting from Sally because it starts from rostering, but then again, it also sort of extends to other areas which I will also describe by the panelists.
Okay, for rostering, yes, that is still ad hoc changes that we have to make. But at least it take off about 50% of what you need to do. So that left the other 50% when ad hoc changes come in, you have to make changes. So there isn't really much. Actually, it still improve in efficiency. Okay. What's the planning is so difficult because it's not. Okay, so for us, that's why we have the two applications. One is the planning part, and then the other one is for the people to do their request part. So based on their requests, we will then prioritize and, not us per se, but AI, because we have got all the rules built in, we have got hard rules, we've got soft rules, so they will help us to try to meet everybody's need. Like what I say, it has actually increased to 87% now that the staff preferences are met. So in that way, it actually very much help us as well.
For the rest, from a more general perspective.
Okay, so for me and Lance befrienders, we look at AI differently. The question is the intent and the outcome and the impact you want to have. What's the theory of change? So when you have the impact, which is very well articulated, and then you create the belief in it, and people believe, they will buy in. With that, it overcomes all political as well as past history. And that is something that pushes people forward. When you believe in something, you will do it. And you will disregard all the concerns and barriers. Thank you.
I think for the social workers, maybe I just want to add on the rostering part. With Sally sharing, actually roster is a very challenging problem for social workers. We don't have high-tech system, but we use pair. So we use pair to actually do our roster. We found a cheaper version of doing it. But from a more general point of view, I think getting buy-in, definitely there's a lot of historical practices. We had people who says that they didn't like the script, finalized summarization because the language doesn't sound like them. It sounds, because English grammatically correct, and it sounds perfect. So to change past practices was difficult. But it was also starting from the point is, we choose projects to get buy-in that actually hits out at people the most. We look at the most painful thing they had. In fact, our next AI project is also something that's very painful to social workers. So I think that helps to move people to change habits. But it takes time, but I think there's hope in it.
Okay, I'll just chime in. So the question is, how do you move your people, your organization to adopt AI? So I actually watched an interview yesterday by the CEO of BlackRock, and they own 250 companies. And the CEO basically said, I called a Zoom meeting with all my executives, and I told them, look, adopting AI is not an elective, it is core curriculum. And if you do not make this an imperative, a survival imperative, someone else is going to eat your lunch. So as an industry, if you want that competitive edge, you will need to embrace AI. Otherwise, someone else is going to eat your lunch. So we need both enlightened leadership, like this CEO, and we need a ground-up movement. We need people to believe in it. We need people to trust. And trust, building trust, is more easily said than done. Believe me, I have been trying to build trust amongst radiologists for the past good 8 years. In my role as chairman of the chapter of diagnostic radiologists in the College of Radiologists in Singapore. And how did we do it? Well, we built societies so that people can come together, voice their opinions. We send out surveys so that we can actually know what the ground is thinking. And over the years, as we study the feedback, the perceptions, the beliefs have changed. So you can see there's an evolution. And in terms of adoption of technology, we know that there is a curve. There are the early adopters, and then there are the early majority, late majority, and laggards. About 6% laggards. And no matter what we say or do, about 6% will never embrace the technology until everyone else has embraced it. So we do not actually focus so much of our energies on convincing the 6% that want to hold back. We focus our energy on convincing and bringing our people who are in the early majority, early adopters, late majority. And so that's how we're trying to do it. So it takes not just change management, it's change leadership.
I think that's an interesting perspective in terms of challenges you face internally, right? Because balancing the internal stakeholders in this journey can be challenging at times, it's trying, and of course it's a continuous effort for that. Which of course brings me to a next question that we have here, all right? It's about external stakeholders. Of course, the question sort of stems from a question related to the use of Scribe. And that question was, how do you obtain consent from patients or clients on the use of Scribe? Would it be verbal or written? Even though the question is pretty straightforward, it's like a yes-no kind of thing. But I thought of maybe expanding this question a little bit more to talk about privacy, because as you have AI interfacing other external stakeholders, what are your views in terms of privacy, the need for consent, and informed consent, and so on?
Oh, I remember the journey to even set up the policy for Scribe because of the issues about how do we take consent, how would it look like, how do we document it, what if the patient did not want to give consent. So I think the entire thing about using AI that was also concerned about it is also how secure will the data be, especially with, it's all this technology driven. So how do we actually obtain consent from the patient and clients? We actually tell them that we'll be using our phone as a recording tool, whereby it will transmit the information to a secure database, whereby it will help us facilitate our documentation process of the session, and it's verbal consent. And we actually document it in our clinical notes saying that verbal consent is taken with who. Now, all this was set in place with multiple parties involved, together with the support from the Data Protection Office, legal, the developer, and of course, the cluster support, the senior management. That was how we even managed to craft out the entire policy to set in place to govern the use of Scribe. So actually, the use of AI by itself actually has a lot of underlying, challenges to it. And because, medical information is actually restricted, sensitive, high. And social work data by itself is classified as restricted, sensitive, high. So we need to also work with a developer, which is OGP, and actually any of the things that they develop actually is classified as that, and actually does meet the HIM manual standards. So that was something that we also make sure we choose the right partner who knows how public healthcare institutions work, knows the level of kind of security, the security that we need for the kind of work we do. So I think that helps with the success rate, especially when you use AI in such a setting like us.
All right, thank you very much for that comment. How about the rest? Do you think privacy is an issue for your stakeholders, at least the external facing ones? Do you need to sort of inform them? Do you think you change their behavior? One example, like if when you're using Scribe, I mean, of course using Scribe as an example over here, but it can of course also apply to other different contexts. How will you change individuals' behaviors in terms of the conversation? Just like if you're in a Zoom meeting and say the meeting is being recorded, right? Does it change individual behaviors, and what are your thoughts about this?
Maybe I start off
Yeah,
first.
sure.
No, so actually we use Scribe for department meetings also. It does change the behavior because to a certain extent, people become very cautious. Okay, because we don't want certain words to come out. But I think that is interesting is because after a while, people get used to it. And they know that when the summary comes out, it is just based on the promise you give, it is very factual, and things get filtered out. But how we manage to get people to buy into this privacy thing is during the initial startup phase, right? We demonstrated it. We really gave it all out. We say whatever we want to say, and we show that actually the summary comes out formal and appropriate. So I think that helps a lot. Yeah.
So for us, because we use a lot of AI and embed it in almost all our programs, first and foremost, it has to be trust. We serve 13,000 seniors, and with every one of them, when we onboard them as part of the MOH policy for the community screener tool, by the time they do the testing to be registered, they are at least familiar with us easily, at least the third or fourth time. So during the communication and the conversations, what is important is the sincerity and the authenticity of your relationship with them. And they need to know that you are truly doing this for their good. Therefore, whatever you use, including AI, whether it's embedded, we will have to inform them, and usually they will agree. Because as long as they understand your intention and what's the impact, usually people will tend to agree. In the event that you will have, of course, a few outliers and the laggards, there will always people who do not believe in anything and everything. So we'll have to treat them on a different different method of handling it. So we exclude them from the AI projects, and we use them also for the manual work. Now, the thing is, we need to make sure that when you rolled out the AI or any innovation, you have to have the easy wins first, low-hanging fruit. Because for us, we are dealing with seniors 60 and above. When you make or they don't believe you, they will go to the nearest market and the whole kampong will know immediately the next day. So we do a lot of methods and we test them. So very simple thing is just this is non-technology, yeah? This is a separate thing. So if you need to onboard them, we usually get a senior carry a goodie bag, but this only works in certain areas. So they go by to the nearest market, and then like Pied Piper, that month we had registration of 600 seniors. So the same thing. So with that, this is hard stuff. These are things that they like. Now, same thing with technology. We need to make sure that your early ones that you sign them on, please make sure that these are the ones who are not critical. Because one, if they're critical, your staff morale is going to be affected. And with that, our staff said, see, I told you, cannot use. Yeah. So we are very careful which staff, which senior, what method you're using, how you're doing it, when you're doing. So basically your 5 Ws and 1 H becomes critical. You onboard them first, get the majority, get the easy wins, and then the low-hanging fruits. Then you go for the majority, like what Dr. Charlene said. Then basically for the laggards, not to worry. Over time, they will be convinced, and that will take like 5 to 7 years, it's fine. So you have to do stages by stages, but it's all about strategy, and all strategy begins is not about the wisest choice, but rather whether they trust you. Ultimately, it's still about human relationships for the client's consent. It is about trust, and that has always been the cornerstone for all our projects and work over the last 30 years, which is why we had no problems getting seniors, the first phase, when we use a lot of AI, we had 6,500 seniors. 80% of them have little or no education, and yet they could use technology. So, and they were doing virtual befriending. Then came the other batch of seniors who were more educated. So when they see that the rental flat seniors can do it, they're like, oh, okay, they can do it, so can I. And these seniors cannot read and write, can use we guide them through technology using AI, using virtual, etc. But you must also design it such that it's easy for them to catch on. If everything is so challenging, by the time you look at all the words, it's like, oh, I'm not participating. So everything is for us is visual, simple, one button. It's just like how you teach a kid, a 3-year-old kid. It's no different. Thank you.
Karen, I just want to jump in there. You'd be surprised how much clinicians are similar to the market aunties and uncles, right? So there's a lot of word of mouth, and as Karen said, you have to be careful about word of mouth spreading around. So you want to be very selective about your use cases. Yeah, so the human operating system is the same, right, everywhere.
All right. So I guess the human factor plays a big role here. Let's sort of switch gears and look at a little bit about the processes within the organization. So there's a question on, with technology of AI changing and evolving at a fast pace, how do you integrate these changes into current practices and keep update? How do you decide when certain technologies become obsolete? Right, of course, the question is coming up very soon on the screen, but let me add also a little bit about changing in work practices. Right? So very often when you have a piece of technology coming in, being like, for example, the automation of reading of scans, right? Workflow changes have to come along with it in order to see those benefits, right? So how does, in your various organizations, how do you change those work practices, and how do you ensure that the benefits will be enduring when such an implementation is being put in place?
So first, whatever technology you use, it has to be intuitive. They don't need to even think. It's just like when you wake up, you brush your teeth, you use either the manual toothbrush or use the electric toothbrush. It shouldn't make a difference to you because technically you're just using a toothbrush. So the same thing for us is we have already changed the mind. Most important is intuitive. Secondly is mindset change, which means there has to be a culture of wanting to be part of the innovation, or wanting to improve things. But we don't improve things for the sake of improving it, but rather it has to have tangible benefits to the staff, to the people. Otherwise, there's no buy-in. Why want to go through a longer way just because it's the latest technology? No. The technology that we use or the AI that we use must show tangible results in reducing time and improve efficiency. So for us, we are very clear that we shut off at 6 o'clock weekdays, and on weekends, we are not activated. Sorry, we don't work unless we're activated. So the staff know that whatever they do, whatever tools we have, including AI, is for them to make sure that they have a quality and a balanced life on weekends and after 6. So we leave it to them to make a decision whether they want to join us on a journey for AI and join us on a journey of innovation or not. So that one you can't force, but they have to have eventual buy-in. But I can assure you, if all your colleagues are going off at 6 and they're not working on weekends, and you look around, would you want to be the odd one out? I don't think so. Even for myself, I try to make sure that we all have a balanced life. And because 1/3 of our workforce in LB is younger than 34, and 1/3 of them are also pursuing their studies, and also have family life, and the balance, the other 20% are above 65. I have quite a lot of that too. So everybody's got family time, friends, etc. And so basically we tell each other, please don't disturb me on weekend unless we're activated. Thank you.
So for us, what happened is, I agree with what Karen has just shared, is make it very intuitive. Now, if you have seen the video earlier, actually Scribe is very easy to use. It's something that, you don't need major practices change. It is just very simple. So instead of, typing into your keyboard or, writing the notes, you're just placing the phone on the table. That's it. So we need to make sure that if technology changes, it has to be something that is even faster and easier than current practices. Now, but there are still certain practices that we learn as we go along to adapt. So for example, I'm very used to, after talking to patient, walking them out of the, the clinic, right? And then of course, I will normally off my Scribe, and I end up with the additional 5 to 10 minutes, whereby, I have to basically go and add in, all my documentations because of that. So I had to change my own practices to ensure that I really finish the entire conversation with the patient and really just focus on walking the patient out. So I think that is something we need to take note of, is really, one, is make sure that the new technology is similar to existing practices and even better to get buy-in. And that as you go along, you yourself, your own practice and behavior adjust accordingly. So I think that's how we did it.
For us, I think what is important is you must know what is the vision that you want or the objective you want to achieve. You cannot just adopt technology just because you want to adopt. It must serve a purpose, okay? So you must find something that is close to what you really need. And from there, you then tweak what you can on your side, your processes, or see how the things that you want to adopt can be changed to meet your needs. So it cannot be just adopting just for the sake of adopting.
Completely agree. So, so we're very cognizant of the fact that whatever we adopt in public healthcare has an impact on healthcare inflation. So we can't just adopt anything that comes on market, and we can't listen to hype. So we have a problem statement-based approach. So where are our biggest problems? Number one, we identify the problem statements, and then we do a horizon scanning. What are solutions out there? And then we choose from a basket of solutions, and then we benchmark them. And then next, we have the preclinical phase, where we actually have to test, to see whether all these vendors are actually, hold them up to their standards. Does it do what it says on the box? That's the preclinical phase. And then we have the clinical pilot, POC, and POV, and the proof of value stage. We need to prove that there is return on investment. Now that is a very prickly word, right? Return on investment. And there are many ways of computing ROI. And do we have the right techniques to compute ROI? That's the next question. And finally, at the post-deployment stage, we have a pause with a checkpoint before we move to the next phase, or we do another cycle. So that's where we do the impact analysis. And then we make a decision. Okay, are we going to retain this product, or are we going to try something new? In fact, we've been doing that for our AI products, AI vendors, and we have decided, sometimes we need to pivot to a different product, even the next generation of technology. So for radiology, we've moved from narrow-based AI. Now we have foundational models in radiology. Some of them are actually giving us better accuracy. So we actually have to change the entire framework of how we assess foundational technology. And as Kim Huat was saying, the tech is moving so quickly. We actually have to change the way we measure. So the metrics have to change. So it is, at times, it's like keeping up with a F1 Formula car, right? It's really, the technology is moving that fast.
All right. On the point of F1 Formula car, I'm also looking at a counter timer right there in terms of time we have. But I just want to sort of quickly wrap up the kind of comments, that the panelists have provided. I think in a way, when you look at technology coming into AI clinical processes, sometimes, at least from Melissa and Karen's organizations, is the technology that comes in and then we look into it, that it should not disrupt the processes by too much. But other times, I think for the case of Charlene as well as Sally, I think your organization sort of look at the processes that you want to improve, and then you shop for the technology that sort of augment this. I guess there's no one particular way for this to be implemented within organizations. And of course, complex clinical areas, you probably will want to take a more process, workflow-based view while selecting those technology. So with that, I think that we have about 23 seconds left. I think with this, we take our time to thank the panelists for today. So give it up to the panelists. And yes. So I believe it's break time soon. I think Hong Tim will take over from there. And thank you very much, everyone.
I hope you all got round to voting earlier. Yeah? You all did your duty. We are about to reveal what came from that voting.
That's right. So
Virtual
it's
round.
the AI in Action HEAL Awards, and we've been nagging at you for the past 2 days to vote. So before I reveal the winner, I'd like to thank everyone who participated. The teams who are all here, I believe. Can you raise your hands for the teams?
Well done.
Please give them a round of applause. And of course, all of you have voted as well. I hear there's an envelope. Yes, okay, thank you.
It's
So a
just
quick
like the
recap.
Oscars now, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. So this is an award started by N.H.G. Health to spotlight ground-up applications of Gen AI. Before we announce the award, let's get John T. Hevesidge, Director of our Digital Innovation Office, to present the People's Choice Award. This is a beautiful envelope. Yes, this is the one. All right. Oh, let's announce this together.
Should we announce it together?
All right. Oh, it's okay.
Let's be close.
All right. Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
second.
And the People's Choice Award goes to
Beacon.
from KDPH and YCH. Congratulations. All right. Please come down. All right.
Congratulations, Team Beacon. Thank you. And
Thank you, John T.
T.
All right. One more award category, in a sense. So in our quest to nurture ground-up innovation across healthcare, CHI's Digital Innovation Office, headed by John T., launched our Digital Innovation Studio just yesterday with Minister. So that's a platform in which everyone in NHG Health can become a creator for digital solutions. And over the past few weeks, actually, we held our inaugural Rock and Heal Challenge, there you have it, where colleagues from all family groups and across the clusters, actually, it was open wide, came together to be trained to harness the power of Gen AI using Party Rock from AWS to solve their healthcare problems.
Yeah, so we had top 10 teams yesterday emerging to showcase their innovations at the semi-finals, which coincided with the official launch of DIS. So just now at Kampong Square, we witnessed the culmination of all their hard work. Some of you were out there, some of you are in here. As 5 finalists presented their innovations, we would now like to unveil the winners of the Rock and Heal Challenge. So to present the prizes, we would like to invite on stage Mr. Richard Goh, AWS's Head of Singapore Public Sector Business Development. Richard, thank you.
All right. Hello. Welcome, Richard. Please take a seat. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Okay, please remain there as we announce the winners. So 4 winners altogether, the crowd's favorite, second runner-up, first runner-up, and the winner. We'll start off with the crowd's favorite. And the winner is Discharge Sync SG from TTSH and NCID. It's you two. Congratulations. So hang on, team. You don't have to leave the stage because you're also the second runner-up for the competition. Come back again.
Congratulations. Another big check.
Congratulations again. All right. It's now time for the first runner-up, and the winners are from IMH Nurse Sync. Oh, well. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
All right.
Okay, the moment you've all been waiting for, the unveiling of the winner. The winner of the Rock and Heal Challenge 2025 is PRISM, Predictive Reliable Inventory and Supply Management from Sing Health Headquarters and National Cancer Centre. Congratulations.
Dr. Lita and the team, congratulations. Great.
Wonderful, thank you, congratulations. Could we please invite all the teams to come forward for one last large photo? Thank you.
So Richard, could you take the center stage and the teams will surround you? Could we all come back here, please? Yep. All right, let's see. I think we'll have to move just a little bit more, Lisa. Just a bit more. Yep. Okay, great. Wow. Can we get it? Can we get it all? Yep. All right. Shift a bit more to the side, to my side. Yep. Okay, great. Congratulations once again to all the teams.
Well done.
Fantastic. Now, we actually had many teams taking part, so all those who didn't win, you're all still winners in your own right. We've got prizes for you as well, so please collect these prizes a little bit later from our challenge organizers. They should be just around with you now. At the beginning of this conference, Minister Ong said that healthcare needs to look outside. He gave us great examples of AI adoption from the maritime industry and from banking as well. So we promised him that at the end of the show, we're going to bring together a panel that assembles leading lights and AI adopters from outside healthcare. And we've brought together now people from design, from law, tourism, and tech as well, because sometimes the best healthcare innovations and inspirations are outside.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. It's like we keep offering more and more interesting snippets. I'm really curious to see how these different domains, design, law, are actually really adopting AI. And actually, if they can transform, there's no reason why we can't in healthcare.
Exactly. And I think there's only one moderator that can bring all these industry together, and he is CHI's council member, Dr. Junaid Bajwa. Please welcome Junaid. All right. Thank you again. All right.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the warm welcome, and thank you very much for the opportunity to host this eclectic panel. If I could invite our panelists to the stage, Annie, Je, Spencer, and Kok Leong. Thank you. Please give them a warm welcome. This is a really supercharged panel. They're not avatars, they're not AI, but they have amazing lived experience. And I think the important thing for us to remember is we can get locked into this ecosystem of healthcare, imagining what AI is doing, but this is a general purpose technology that is affecting all industries at the same time. And I'm sure many of you are using the same tools that people have been discussing outside of work, and you're using them perhaps for retail, for banking, for maybe booking holidays. But when you come into your environment, it's a very different experience. We're going to try and tackle some of these and understand, actually, is that the same that's happening in other industries? What could we learn? And what do we anticipate the future to be? And so Annie is from the Singapore Tourism Board. Je is a co-founder at Stuck. Spencer is at Google. And Kok Leong is a partner at Allen & Gledhill. So what we'll begin to do is to hear a little bit from each of them first in terms of a short lightning talk, and then we'll bring it together in a panel, and we'd love your interaction in that panel too. We'd love for you to share your questions, share your observations. No question is too hard, no question is out of bounds. We'll try and do our best to manage that to the best of our abilities. So perhaps, Annie, I could invite you to come first. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Annie from Singapore Tourism Board. I'd like to start my presentation with a study that was done by Accenture a couple of years ago, or just last year, that actually shows the AI maturity in different industries. And lest you think that travel is way ahead, we are actually in the same range. And after today's presentation, I kind of think that the results are not very accurate. It does sound like healthcare is way ahead of tourism. So I'm not sure why I'm here, really, but okay. I am of the personal opinion that Gen AI or AI is here to stay. It is not a fad. It is pervasive. And I always tell my industry that if we want to do something in the tourism space, we have to be convinced of at least the minimum benefits of what Gen AI can offer in our personal lives. We got to start at a personal level first before we can make a breakthrough for the industry. So I'm going to keep my presentation very simple. I'm going to share about how Gen AI influences me in my personal life, how it cascades to my professional life, and I'll share some industry examples. Oh, sorry, not yet there. Okay, so every morning, just ignore this slide. Every morning I wake up, I talk to GPT. It may sound weird, but then again, I'll always wake up with a lot of questions, very random questions in my mind, like why is the sky blue, or whatever. I do ask GPT many questions every day. And for my family vacation, I have 5 kids. Their ages range from 8 to 16. So you can imagine planning a family vacation. It is complicated. GPT has actually planned my holiday for me from UK to Europe to Asia, Sri Lanka. It has always been the starting point for us planning a vacation. There is really no turning back. It really starts with GPT first, and then we go into many aspects of our vacation planning. When I shop, for example, I would ask GPT, okay, I'm going to make this purchase. It costs such and such. I'm buying it on a certain platform. It could be Amazon, it could be Lazada, whatever. Or I'm shopping at a mall. Which credit card should I use? Card A or card B? GPT would tell me in an instant, oh, if you're purchasing this thing for this amount at this place, card A is the better choice because of higher miles per, mileage per, what do you call it, miles per dollar. And what is the redemption like, and so on and so forth. I may sound very frivolous here, but I need to know all this at a personal level because tourism actually transcends dining, retail, and everything else. So in many ways, GPT has made my life a lot easier, and it's very important for me to know how, as a person, as a visitor, I use GPT first and what it means to people around me. Okay, I'm going to share with you a personal example as well, as a member of public utilizing healthcare service. So recently, I had a nasty fall on the head. The ambulance sent me to the public hospital, okay? The public hospital did not give me a discharge summary, which is needed for insurance matters. So it's very simple. I needed to go back to the patient services center of that particular hospital. Of course, I'm not going to tell you which hospital is that. So I Googled, and I asked, I went on a search, and I said, what is the opening hours of the patient services center of ABC Hospital? And when I Googled, this is what the internet would show. It says 24 hours. I'm like, no, it is not. It obviously is not. And then I went to the website of this particular hospital. I went to contact us, and I've got a lot of, I've got this long list of emails and contact numbers, except for the patient services center. It didn't have, but I can tell you it exists in that hospital. So for some of you who are managing information platform, you may want to know that. So I asked GPT, and GPT said, okay, the patient services center of this hospital, and if you need medical records, it's open from Mondays to Fridays, 9 to 5, blah, 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 blah. And the information is accurate, by the way, which up to today, I still cannot find it on the hospital's website. Okay, next, a few weeks after the fall, I had some throbbing pain. I kind of guessed that it's a post-fall trauma, but it's still worrying, right? Don't quite know what to do, so I asked this question. I said, my head still hurts after a fall, what do I do? I Googled, and out came this. You can just imagine on your phone, right? You just ask this question, and the sponsored sites will come out. I go to Reddit, I read a lot of comments. They have Mount Sinai and Mayo Clinic and whatnot. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine, ask GPT, my best friend. And my best friend was so empathetic. I love it. I'm sorry to hear that. Yes, that could be serious, okay? But depending on your symptoms and your situation, go to the emergency department, blah, 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 blah. And even tells me where to find the hospitals in which districts. And if your symptoms are mild, you're not vomiting, blah, 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 this is what you do. Ultimately, this is the recommendation. Isn't this perfect? So my point is, it really should influence our daily lives as much as, I mean, if we want to push for AI or Gen AI in our workplace, it has to start from a personal life. I'm going to share a little bit about, in my professional life, what do I do? So I use GPT a lot for research. For example, when I have to research on regulatory regimes around the world, I do fact check, of course. It has helped me to crystallize a lot of ideas. And most importantly, I think many of you can relate to this, it has helped me to manage escalated complaints from very unreasonable members of public whom you want to give them a sort of a piece of your mind, but you have to say in a very professional manner. You want to kind of disengage them, and you want to tell them in a way that they cannot come back and say that, oh, you are rude. I think I write quite well. So GPT actually changes very little of what I say, but it's the nuancing as well as the additional words, the critical words that they put in at critical junctures that really adds the finishing touches to the replies that I give to some of these really, really, really difficult members of public. Okay, a segment of the tourism industry, we have tour operators. And the tour operators are here to tell Singapore stories. You know, they create tours. For this segment of our industry stakeholders, creating a tour is just not like, okay, let's do a city tour. There's actually a lot of research that goes into it. They have to think of what they want to incorporate in a tour, what is the name that they want, who's the target audience, and so on and so forth. I'm going to give you a live example, not really live, but this is what our tour operators are starting to do. And this is an example that I'd like to share with you. So for example, I'm a tour operator. I want to come up with a tour concept. So I say, I want to create a Peranakan tour. GPT immediately tells me that, oh, you can do a visit to a museum. You can talk about the culture. It could be culinary experiences. And I say, okay, I'll take your suggestions. Tour will be in Singapore. What should I name it? In an instant, I get really beautiful names. So I told GPT, I said, okay, let's go with number 1, which is the Peranakan Tapestry Tour. Can you show me a logo of the tour? And out comes this. And it incorporates very vibrant, traditional, you know, Peranakan motifs. I said, oh my God, that's so nice. This is how I talk to GPT because it feels like I'm talking to a best friend sometimes. So I said, what should my company be called? And these are all the suggestions. I do not need to think very much. And I said, okay, number 4 sounds broad enough. Includes all kind of, it allows me to create other culture tours. What kind of tours do you think I should do under this name? And then, you know, oh, sorry, pardon me for the spelling error, but these are all the suggestions that come up in an instant. So I asked GPT, I pushed boundaries. I said, if I do all of them, can you put them in a slick poster catering to the European market? And I get this. Okay? In the traditional sense of working, our tour operators will have to talk to, let's say, a marketing house, right? They have to go through the briefs. They have to talk about their ideas. You have to go through iterations. The traditional approach, it will cost about 15 to 20,000, 3 months of development at least. With GPT, I did this on my bed at night in less than 10 minutes for $27 per month. So that's how amazing it is and how it has transformed our tour operators. Very quickly, STB has just test piloted Leo, which is a Gen AI-powered holographic digital concierge, to help to answer queries. Leo actually can talk to people in 27 different languages. I won't go into, in the interest of time, I won't go into the video. Expedia, which is our online travel agent, he has also recently launched an industry-first feature that turns the reels that you see on Instagram into bookable travel itineraries, and it's all very simple. So this is how our industry, in some ways, is using Gen AI and AI to transform the way they do their business. I'm going to end off this slide with saying, with this thing that actually it really captures my thoughts. We live in a digital age where consumers really adapt to new tech very, very fast. Once upon a time, the World Wide Web took 7 years to reach 100 million users. Facebook took 4.5 years. Instagram took 2.5 years. GPT just took 2 months. And why do I end up with this? Once again, it goes back to what I said from the beginning, that really, I don't think it's a fad. I really believe that it's here to stay, and we need to embrace it. And we start by embracing it in very little ways, and how it influences, let it influence our lives, let it make our lives better, then we can talk about improvement for the industry. Thank you.
Annie, thank you very much. Sheikh, I hand over to you for your session as well. That was excellent.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tze. I'm a co-founder of a local design innovation agency called Stark. And I think for today, we've been hearing a lot about how a lot of teams are using AI to drive more reliability, more accuracy. And in the creative industry, I like to present a little bit of a counterpoint. A lot of times we are looking at how we can find deviations from the norm. Oh, sorry, I forgot to grab the clicker. Like forgetting your clicker. And this is just a snapshot of the kind of work that we do. A lot of times we are asked to do product innovation, come up with new kind of hardware, new kinds of interaction. And on the flip side, the other kind of things that we do have to do with design research. How can you find new insight into how we might think about spaces, about communities? And that's the spread of work that requires some kind of thinking outside of the box. And when we look at how AI is impacting creativity within our field, we see that generally you find a lot of tools emerging which just get better at delivering accuracy as well. Similar to what you see in healthcare, right? If you have something that you want to envision, you can try and get as close as possible. And a lot of the commercial tools within the design space is also kind of trending to try and deliver this kind of outcomes. But then again, we talked about hallucinations. AI sometimes gives you things that you don't really expect, but that really is the interesting part. You know, from a creative perspective, having AI which is a little bit disobedient sometimes can feel like having diversity of perspectives and opinions, especially kind of opinions that you don't really anticipate. So in our practice, in some of the work that we do, we see it as a way to be really fast with experimenting with ridiculous things, with bad ideas. And we think it is a little bit counterintuitive at times, because AI is really designed to be trained on a data set to give you, the next thing that's supposed to be correct in a sequence of data. But yet at the same time, the caveat is trained on things which it has already seen. And if you're looking for something innovative, you don't really want to see something that has already been seen out there in the market before. And the other thing is these tools, like how you saw Annie accessing examples of the posters just now, it's really accessible, right? Anyone can use ChatGPT. You can replace some of the front-end work in coming up with a design brief, with coming up with design output. And the challenge is now everyone has the same equal access to this. How do you get something fresh out of this? Right? Especially everybody can get the same thing. So we do think it's really a really critical skill to think about how you can get solutions that other people using the same tools, whether you're using ChatGPT or some other kind of design software, how do you get solutions that other users don't normally get? And on our side, we really think, how do you start from a point, and we do this quite religiously, that we deliberately dwell a little bit on the bad things, on the funny starting points. We've developed our own AI software. It's spun off into a separate company. It's a design sketching tool that uses AI. And because we are teaching in the University of Singapore as well, we dog food our product, right? We also get the students to play with it and explore how to use it. So this is an example of a student, Rachel. She used this tool, HyperSketch, back in 2023 to explore rethinking her design process, right? So her approach is starting with dysfunction, finding something wrong in the bag. In this case, deliberately prompting the AI for a broken bag. And in that process of prompting for something broken, she saw an interesting opportunity that when there's a hole in the bag, perhaps it could be something else. It could give rise to a new function. So what she created is a bag that converts from a backpack to a chic sling bag. And the question here is, so who created this bag? You know, is it AI? Or was it her? Right, and the real crux of this is that it required that insight or that eye to spot opportunity within that broken or flawed sketch that came up. Right, so after going through this is what we tell ourselves every night. Okay, we still got a job. Or maybe some of us still do, because, you know, like as Annie has shown, maybe some of the graphic designers might be losing some jobs. But, you know, for how long? Right? And I think the thing that I heard really interesting from the very first panel today was that when you mentioned that, you know, the AI can be more empathetic than people, and that's something that blew my mind, you know. And in our process, when we do design research, the goal of design research is to find really human-centered insights, right? So we think that part of our job is safe. And in the process of getting to human-centered insights, you know, in this case, this is a nursing home that we worked with an architectural firm to develop in West Coast. It's run by Lentor Health. And a big part of that process is making visible all these very human needs and insights so that the operators, all the various stakeholders understand why we are proposing certain experiences or designs. And that work is a lot of work, right? It's quite time intensive. You need to do a lot of research and scoping and documentation. And the second use that we see for AI is actually this artificial quick empathy. And particularly in the area of simulating the unspoken and uncomfortable. We saw this come up just now when the topic of getting your TPMS feedback from your managers, right? No one wants to do that, right? And we worked with Woodlands Health at that time on a one-day workshop, and we asked them, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you generate some artificial personas, but at the same time, deliberately ask for all the frustrations that normally your staff don't want to tell you. And this generated some personas. And you know, as we were running through these personas, some of the healthcare practitioners were nodding along. You know, because when you're able to get these kind of problems that seem kind of insightful, that, you know, people don't really want to talk about, but addresses some kind of problem, it becomes an interesting starting point that they can then go and validate. Say, yeah, it sounds kind of true. Then can we go and test it? So 2 things to wrap up today. Right, one is, you know, embrace the weird. Sometimes it's a great starting point for thinking differently, for innovation. And secondly, how can you leverage AI to pull up the stuff that, you know, is about human-centered or human-centeredness, but takes a long time to get to because it makes people uncomfortable. So I'd like to end with this. This is a quote from Dr. Albert Szent-Györgyi. He won the Nobel Prize for Medicine back in 1937. And he says, innovation is seeing what everybody has seen and thinking what nobody has thought. In this case, you know, you have this tool, AI, that really has seen a lot of things, quite a lot of data that has been put into it. But you need the discrimination and judgment of a person to find that kernel of insight, to find something really interesting to then build upon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So that was actually really, really interesting. So it's a hard act to follow. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Spencer, and I'm the regional head of sustainability at Google for Asia Pacific. And I understand that last year, some of you might have attended last year, that AI was talked about, and an important topic related to AI was the environmental footprint and how sustainable it can be. So I think that's why I was invited here to share our thoughts on that. Now, it's really incredible to see the progress that's been made, all the applications that I was privy to today from just the healthcare sector, and that represents an explosion in the number of computes, as you can imagine, for the whole industry. So that is the question that we have to address. Now, first of all, I'd like to point out that Gen AI really took off with Gen AI. And Junaid's not allowed to answer this question, but when did this whole Gen AI craze start? It was in, I believe, November 2022.
Yep.
So it hasn't been 3 years. So that pace of change is amazing, but it's important to note that AI existed before Gen AI. Now, Gen AI puts it on steroids because it makes it easy to relate to interrogate, to interact with. But AI is this whole set of other technologies that predates that. And for Google, our mission since our founding just 26 years ago has been to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Now, in 2014, we bought DeepMind, and which is now Google DeepMind, and now in 2016, the official strategy of the company was we are an AI-first company. So we've been infusing our products from search, et cetera, with AI, even before Gen AI, and a lot of the foundational techniques like Kubernetes and containerization, these were all invented within Google. But now our mission is to make AI useful, helpful for everyone. But with regards to sustainability, AI can help us accelerate the transition to a more sustainable future by transforming climate information into actionable insights and driving innovation forward. So that really is the mission, and it's really exciting times. So our approach with AI, with that in mind, is that it must be bold, responsible, and made together. So I'll just briefly step through this. So to boldly accelerate climate solutions and action with AI, we have to make use of the 3 superpowers of AI, which would be information, better prediction, and better optimization. So those are the 3 themes that generally really drive more sustainable outcomes through the use of AI. And just an example with air quality. Singapore is lucky. Since I moved to Singapore 5 years ago, I don't think there's been bad haze. But if you travel, there's bad air. I was recently in India, very bad air, and there are lots of health implications from that. But if you want to dig into the data of AI, of air pollution, it's incredibly complex. It's dynamic, it's global, and it's also local. You're modeling the dispersion of aerosols, at the street level, but also across continents. And so if you take all the different data layers from satellite imagery, aerial imagery, traffic, et cetera, you need all this actually to really get to very, very actionable insights when it comes to air quality at a city level, at a national level, et cetera. So this is what AI can do really, really well. And we are finding that actually air quality information and insights can be of help to a number of industries, including healthcare, as you can see here, but many others that you wouldn't have thought about, like insurance, for example. Health insurers are very interested in knowing about air quality predictions. So this is an example of what my colleagues at Google Research are working on that are all related to more sustainable outcomes. And one that might be really interesting is heat resilience, because I think that will have health implications as well. But there are many more areas of research. Now, when it comes to responsibly managing the environmental impact of AI, there are 3 central parts: efficient infrastructure, model optimization, and reducing emissions. So for efficient infrastructure, this is scaling. All of you have heard that to power all that use of AI that we've been talking about, data centers are going up everywhere. So we need to drive efficiency. And 2 examples of that. Compared with 5 years ago, compared with 5 years ago, a Google data center can now power 6 times the amount of compute. So that's a really, really sharp increase. And it's powered by things like hardware. Google runs a whole stack from chips all the way to models. And with our chip, we have the tensor processing unit, which is used a lot for inference. And our 7th generation Ironwood was just released. It's almost 30 times more energy efficient than the 1st generation, which came out in 2018. So think about that. In 6 years, you have 30x increase in energy efficiency. So when it comes to model optimization, it's also about how you build your models. My best analogy there is if you build a website and you want to put your picture there, you could set your 2 megabyte high definition photo, but that's a complete waste of bandwidth because actually a 70K JPEG might do. That's an example of overkill, and actually models, large language models, we're learning how to optimize in such ways through quantization, different types of decoding. And so you can actually reduce the computes for an equivalent model through optimization by up to 100 times. And finally, for emission reduction, the interesting stat is this. 2024 versus 23, our overall consumption of electricity around the world for our data centers went up by 27%. And it will continue to increase. But due to a lot of work we've been doing in securing carbon-free energy, and this would be solar, wind, but also geothermal, and now we're also investing in nuclear. In that same period, 27% increase in electricity consumption, we actually reduced the data center-related energy emissions by 12%. So you could say that's a start. It's good to divorce the trends, but we really need to make much further progress to keep pushing down those emissions. But we've shown that it is possible. And finally, the key point is that we have to do all of this together. And a lot of that has to be through collaboration. And a really important, an interesting case for collaboration is data, because all AI is grounded on data. And if you go to datacommons.org, what Google has done is using the power of AI is actually helping the United Nations measure the progress on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals with 169 KPIs by bringing together thousands of data sets and allowing natural language processing, or generative AI interrogation to make it probably one of the largest knowledge graphs in the world. And this is an example of working together to allow insights to be more accessible to everyone. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, I feel like I'm in the wrong line after listening to our speakers. My name is Kok Leong. I head up the firm's technology and corporate IP practice. I'm from A&G Singapore. It's one of the largest firms in Singapore. The practice is, we are lawyers. We are not the kind that appear on Netflix. Those are called litigators. In fact, the majority of lawyers are nice people who, we call them desk jockeys. You spend the majority of your time working on documents. The areas of work that my practice covers are roughly grouped into 15 different work streams. And we call it a dual focus practice. The first focus is on transactions. That's basically putting together contracts for our clients. And the second broad area is advisory work, advising on matters of law and regulation. With the advent of AI, more than half of our work streams in the past year have AI elements. And so, as with many of you, my first experience with ChatGPT, I must confess it was a profound mixture of dread and hope. And the dread part led my team and I down a terrible rabbit hole. We spent months trying to figure out how was it possible that this thing that could write so well, what it would take us hours, if not days, to write. And that effort, I'm really bad at this, that effort led to a 26 pages light and breezy article called Shift Happens. This is the first issue of Decoder. Please feel free to download it and have a read. At the end of this process, I was firmly an AI skeptic, right, without doubt, because the pros really didn't seem to be anywhere close to outweighing the cons. Now, imagine my delight when my managing partner prompted me to take the lead on the firm's generative AI platform. Right? And after 9 months, I can safely say to you here that I am an AI optimist. The firm's platform is called Angel, short for Allen Gladhill Inquiry Language. It is a very modest setup of 4 GPUs and made up entirely of open source models. These are small models, and Z would find it humorous to know that we particularly choose non-creative models. Right? Now, the first hurdle, even before the first prompt, we had to overcome 2 big challenges. How do we use LLMs with our work in a safe way? And this is basically the data protection, data security issue. And our approach, after going back and forth and figuring out, and we are working in an environment of high trust, and our clients basically expect that the documents not to be anywhere but with us. The solution for our project was to do an entirely on-premise LLM solution. The second challenge proved to be much more challenging. This is the lack of factuality that these models produce. Now, again, I must confess, when I heard stuck using the hallucinations as a design feature of these models, I wondered, again, I must be in the wrong line, right? But I pushed the team, and thankfully this inspired some of the features that I'll show you very shortly. Now, Angel is prioritized as a gateway to our know-how. It is not used as a source of our know-how. What this means is that lawyers and the teams of practitioners curate their know-how on Angel, and then the magic begins. Now, you'll notice that the format of the output is prioritized around short-form content and heavy use of referencing. This is actually to assist with checkability, verifiability, right? So that facts remain facts. And one of the big productivity boosts that we didn't expect when we put together an RAG, this is called a Retrieval Augmented Generation System, a very simple one. The search engine, the semantic search engine, was basically a personal Google search. Wonderful, fast, relevant, and highly useful. The next thing we prioritized Angel for was document analysis. And this is basically using the system to provide information that is used for human judgment, not to replace human judgment. And in this area, I think there's quite a lot of write-up. If you were to go online, you can even use ChatGPT. The term summarize was a revelation to us. There are, in fact, 2 well-written up modes of summary. The one that we slavishly use is called extractive summary, where it would pull out a bit of a scrap of the text of the document that you're summarizing. And with a twist of the phrasing, if you call on the model to summarize for XYZ, you then have a very targeted summary. Again, highly useful, highly checkable. When chat proved to be insufficient for some of our users, we had to come up with specialized modes of analysis. The second one is actually open deep research, yet another open source technology. And this is the second favorite mode of the team. This is called multiple document review. Now, for someone like myself, I have what is called vintage precedents. These are documents that I've worked on, advice I've worked on, that can be as old as 31 years. And so to be able to see all of that stacked together, to see the trends and all that is pretty amazing. I admit it's somewhat geeky, but these are facts and highly useful. That led to custom presets, which allows our lawyers to specialize, to produce specialized outputs of their content. And the design feature for this is actually that it is shareable. As you can see, I'm the proud author of 3 presets. Now, the idea here is to share, to encourage the lawyers to share prompt engineering knowledge that they have gained throughout the firm. This led to our most favorite mode. Now, something about the work that we do, lawyers love systems that produce false positives only, right? Now, this is the most thorough method of data analysis that we have. It is actually paragraph-level prompting. What you see on the left is the original text, and here I have a plain English translator to translate the Greek on the left, and what this produces is an instantly highly checkable, highly verifiable output that you can use, not use, and the question list can go all the way to the left in as many ways as you can prompt or question your information. You've heard of vibe coding. Welcome to vibe drafting. This is choose your style, load up with some bullet points, and the advanced features of this would include chatting within a folder of the matter that you're working on, leaving in blanks, and the platform will know to fill in the blanks. Finally, the most recent feature, just 2 weeks old, is called Composer. This is probably also quite foreign to a lot of you. The words on the right is known as a redlining version. So to us, this is dense information. It's literally reading 2 versions at once and deciding whether you like the old version or the new version. To a lawyer, this is very comforting. This is looking at things that you need to look at, which are the changes, not the stuff that you've already read. Now, some quick findings, the very last slide. The first point, we felt that the focus should be on augmenting the worker, not just automating the work itself, and a couple of findings and pointers that we follow. The main one is actually let subject matter experts be subject matter experts. In the eyes of an expert, something that is 20% wrong still yields 80% of useful output. Now, the second one really took me by surprise. I must confess, I am a FOMO over FOMO, right? Fear of messing up must be more than fear of missing out. But in a private environment like this, with a tool that's meant only for in-house use, no risk, the rate of adoption was alarmingly low. Like 130 test users, probably only 20 at most, right? So the idea of if you build it, they will use it out the window. And I think this has been a recurring theme that we've been hearing, that you do need to put work into the human side of things, as much as the tech is equally important. And the very final point is that the AI scaffolding can make all the difference. The AI scaffolding is the code in and around the LLM, and we found that the idea that the term that we use is that we would like to see our large language models put on rails as much as possible, and that is primarily because of the lack of factuality that is one of our biggest challenges, and that would lead to the agentic AI, which is the next phase. Hopefully, we have something to talk about and perhaps get invited back, but I will certainly get another partner to stand for you. Thank you.
Team, that was extraordinary. I mean, I think we're a healthcare group and organization, but learning about what you've all shared is extraordinary. I mean, just to summarize, I think it's really worth reflecting, Spencer, on what you said. Most of these tools are like 2.5 years old, so essentially it's a toddler at the moment, and we've seen it kind of just grow from being a baby to a toddler. Imagine what it could do next. The importance of creativity, the fact that it's democratized for everyone, and that everybody can start to use these tools in whatever way they wish to use it, and everybody can see value, be you a healthcare professional, a lawyer, a technocrat, in the tourism side, on the creative side. It's totally fascinating to me in terms of where we could take it. How long do we have for the conversation itself? About 25 minutes, is that okay? So in tradition of the conference this year, we're using AI to generate the first question. So I'll invite you all to have a conversation with me around the first question. If we could have it up if possible. And also, if you have a question, please do engage with us as well. So the first question is, in healthcare, we are concerned about widening the AI digital divide between tech-savvy and non-tech-savvy staff, between well-resourced and smaller healthcare facilities, between different patient demographics. How have you ensured, in your respective industries, that AI adoption doesn't leave anybody behind? So there's a risk, isn't there, around, as you introduce these new technologies, you create a gulf and a divide for the haves and the have-nots. How are you thinking about this in your respective industries? Annie, maybe I could come to you first and give it a go.
I think the question is not about the have and the have-nots, it's the want or the don't wants, you know. So in tourism, we have many, many industry veterans, people who have been in industry for 30, 40, 50 years. And today, they'll still tell us that, no, we need to see people face to face, they need to hear our voice, everything it has to be manual. As an industry developer, it's been 3 years, we've been advocating to the industry, look, there is emerging tech that can help you, not replace you. You got to learn how to do things better, because if you don't, you will be left behind. I think that's the reality. It's like WhatsApp, right? I mean, when WhatsApp first came, we were all like, what is that? But now it's become part of our daily lives, and WhatsApp has become a business you see many businesses, you know, using WhatsApp as the business account. And so this is what we tell the industry, that you need to move with it. If not, you will be left behind, because the reality is, who needs travel agents nowadays? Who needs tourist guides, right? So you either make yourself obsolete or you go with it.
Okay.
So as I was saying, like 3 years ago, we've been sounding the alarm. Last year, what we did was we made it very simple. So we actually had, a bit like your face-off, we had live demos to show people, literally, just now when I showed you about the tour creation, we had a tour operator on stage to show live how he used Gen AI to generate all these images for his tour, which then sold out, right? And that convinced people that actually it's not really as difficult as it is. I didn't have SIT to come and do, you know, all the stuff, but it was really just Gen AI. And after that, we had many people coming up to us to say that, thank you very much, because when they came for the conference, there was a lot of angst about AI. They felt that there was just too much talk about AI, and it's not relevant for them, and in fact, they feel, I don't know, you just know that there's angst within and resistance. And we actually have many people who came up to say that I'm prepared to try, because I see for myself how simple it is.
And we heard yesterday the importance of play and just giving a go and seeing how it goes. And then I'm sure that many of you are using these things outside in your respective lives. And the question is, how can you bring it in? Kok Leong, you give yourself a really hard time, but actually you gave a brilliant presentation. And also thinking about what you've done to truly embrace. I know lots of lawyers who are not as advanced as what you're doing, but also just the profession itself and as a tribe. How are you thinking about this space, and what have you done to encourage your organization to adopt these tools?
Well, first, I must say that the legal sector, there's significant buzz, and I would say almost a sense of urgency that we all got to get on board with these tools. The Ministry of Law and the IMDA have lots of programs and grants for law firms to get on board. The ministry itself actually has a three-pronged approach to this issue. There's a first stage where you get your document management systems, the basics in place, and then you move on to the second stage, and AI actually is the third stage. Beyond that, there's also going to be a generative AI policy that will be published very shortly, and what the ministry has done is to go out and talk to all the lawyers, gather all the difficulties, pain points, and come together to share that resource with lawyers, and I'm sure it will be a public document that other industries can look at as well. Now, within the firm, I think the real challenge is how to get lawyers to invest in their future work-life balance, right? Literally, it is that. It is a very complicated issue to want someone to use something against their will, and even though knowing it is for their own good, when you yourself have doubts about its utility, in the sense that you will be using AI on a daily basis, like daily driving. Even not for myself, I use it every day, but as I'm playing a game, you know,
Yeah.
I might get some breakthrough, I might not, but if I don't even play,
Yeah.
I will never get it, right? So that's the tricky part, which we'll see. We are going public, we are going to launch fully within the firm next month, and we will then see how one firm can put that one program in order. Now, to give you a bit of perspective of the legal sector, the legal sector is made up of roughly a handful of very large firms, local and offshore, who are all in this space, trying to sell AI, and about a long tail of roughly 10,000 small firms, right? So one of the things that has come out of this such a large range of players is that really a one-size-fits-all solution is completely out of the question.
It's out of the question.
Out of the question because everyone, the range is so great that you really would need, there should be a consultant to law firms, the different ranges, to figure out what works best for the firm.
Thank you. And maybe, sir, I could come to you, because you gave a beautiful analysis in terms of the creative industry. And I do often wonder in terms of what might happen to certain industries, which ones will be the ones that will thrive, will not thrive. But in your industry, how many people are super tech savvy versus none? And how is the potential of these tools perhaps unlocking the creative potential that you have?
Yeah, so I'm trying to find a healthcare parallel, right? So I don't think it's about whether you are tech savvy or not. If I look at design, what we have is there's the craftsmanship behind design. And you'll always have designers who are vested in the craft and want to spend the time to do it right. And I think we see that parallel in healthcare as well. And I think for consulting, what we always remind ourselves is that we are getting paid for design outcomes, right? We want the best outcomes. It doesn't really matter how long you take to do the work. And in healthcare, I think the parallel is similar because you want ideal health outcomes. And what we then see this translates to is two things. One is if you can focus on the decision making, right, then you get better quality decision making. That's a win. And the second part, which I think we always tend to neglect, is that as a service, the thing that you want to spend time is also your customer service, how you connect with your customer, what makes them have a really enjoyable process in getting to this good design outcome. And if using tools can help you get both of those things or help you alleviate some of that, in healthcare, it means that you can spend more time serving the customer, you know, the things that got you into healthcare in the first place, to work with people and to deliver ideal health outcomes. I think then that's the motivation to get everyone to, up to speed. Yeah.
And Spencer, your organization, everybody's tech savvy, I would assume, right? And so actually it's probably a different flavor of things. When you're going out speaking to customers, and you've been, as Google, been at the forefront of what search is, and actually been at the forefront of what AI is too, what are the challenges that you face to try and convince people to maybe just give it a go and play? Or indeed, what recommendation would you have to this eclectic audience before you?
Well, we have a different take on it because we're a large multinational technology company, and over the last 20-odd years, so much has changed with the internet, with search. So for us, a big part of what Google does around the world is actually digital upskilling and providing that to communities all around the world because it helps grow the digital space. And that's what we do. We were doing, and now with AI, it's become really all the more important because there are people that want to try it, but don't know how to, or might not have the opportunity to have access to it.
Yeah.
And so we address that at different levels. And one is at a very individual level. We have traineeship programs that's part of the Skills Ignition SG program. So working with IMDA, where there are specific traineeship programs for AI cloud engineers, et cetera. And that gives opportunities for people that are trying to switch careers, for example. And then just last month, we launched the AI Cloud Takeoff initiative with, I believe this is the Digital Industry SG the ISG, and it's a program that's trying to help SMEs, Singapore SMEs with smaller number of employees, to give them the consulting, the credits, the help to actually really operationalize a use case they might have. So these are some of the things that we're doing, and these are interesting because you can see that the Singapore government, at least from my perspective, is very proactive. I mean, STB is sounding the alarm, so to speak. But if you take a step back and you look at Malaysia and Indonesia, you know, there's a lot more we're doing, and the governments are aware, and so we're working very closely with those governments also to provide training opportunities, and take it up a level that we have the AI Opportunity Fund for Asia Pacific, where we're working with the Asia Venture Philanthropy Network to provide funding, millions of dollars of funding to organizations that support disadvantaged communities, non-traditional users, to give them the skills and the opportunity to use AI in use cases, including in not-for-profit world for social impact, etc. So we're trying to take a broad, trying to cover many parts of this question.
And as I reflect on your answers, and if we could just bring the Slido up, if possible, it's not about tech savvy or not tech savvy. Suddenly, these are not technical, deeply technical tools. It's not just for the IT department. This is democratized technology available to everyone. If you can use a smartphone, if you can use a computer, you should be able to use these tools. And they've tried to make it a beautiful experience, make it super simple. They've tried to encourage you to learn and adapt and evolve. And then there are organizations like yourselves that are enabling others to not just think about where we are today, but actually where the world is moving to. Because I would assume that the future state of these tools will be even better than the current state. So the world is moving so fast, and the convenience that we now demand in all aspects of our lives will also be demanded through some of these tools as well. If we could, maybe we could start to pepper in a couple of questions that we have from the audience too. Maybe the second one here. So healthcare professionals worry that AI will dehumanize care. Yet each of your industries have used AI to enhance rather than replace human interaction. What concrete strategies can healthcare learn from your sectors using AI to augment rather than diminish the human element? And I think that this is quite an interdisciplinary question, and it's not just one around what happens just in healthcare. You could argue that the same could be true in law, it could be true in travel, in retail, and others. But there's a design component to this, I think, to this. When you're thinking about some of the big challenges that you face, and even when you've thought about the creative side, presumably you have an interdisciplinary team that you work with. How might you approach this question? Do you want to give it a go?
Sure. So, two things in the work. I think one is looking at AI as a collaborator.
Yes.
You know, kind of how Annie was talking about having a dialogue with ChatGPT to propose and then iterate on options. I think that's one way that doesn't take the human out of the decision-making process, because it's still Annie in the driving seat, right? Spotting and asking, this is okay, this is not okay. And I think the other part that we see it work in the design space is that it's a really good vehicle for bringing up bias. You know, the data set that it's trained on can be biased in certain ways, and you can deliberately ask it to emphasize bias. Like the example with the unspoken voices. You know, what are these problems that people are always talking about that they're afraid to bring up?
Yeah.
And you can then bring the human back in the process by going back and test these biases by talking to your patients, to talking to your staff, to your team, to corroborate and validate. And that part of bringing back to the real world brings your contextual knowledge, your judgment, back to kind of triangulating where these starting points are. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Yeah.
And healthcare professionals can be the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists, but healthcare professionals can also be our administrative teams. And I often think about this in that we have a whole vast of use cases that we could begin to deploy. And actually, the reason that most of us get into healthcare is to try and make a difference to the patients and public that we serve. And sometimes in the midst of that, we get caught up in the emails that we have, the paperwork that we have to do, the drama that we have to maintain, kind of in terms of the business practices of healthcare. And I wonder whether through these tools we could become even more productive in what we do. Have you found that in your lived experiences that you're becoming more productive in the last couple of months than you were before? Do you have more free time to do things, and maybe that free time to do the things you really want to do? Or is that time being caught up in doing other things? And your buddy is now GPT, and so how do you work with your buddy? And is it about a work-life balance for you, or is it just productivity and effectiveness?
Actually, sometimes I find that I talk to GPT more than to my husband. I think it has just enhanced my way of life on a very, very daily basis. On the very simple things that I do, it has really made things so much more convenient. I want to go back to this question, if I may.
Please.
Let me give you an example for tourist guides, for example. In the tourism industry, with how I see this question is really about whether you see limitations or you see opportunities, and both of which I feel there are chances for us to make things better. So when it comes to the tourist guides, for years, we've been told that there is not enough tourist guides who can speak different languages, like German, French, always a lack. Chinese, maybe not, English, maybe not, but we are very lacking in tourist guides who can speak in certain languages for which the visitors really need that. Recently, we found a technology using AI that does live interpretation. So when I'm speaking in my, we need the tourist guide, so it doesn't replace them at all. It actually augments the services and the offerings of a tourist guide. The group of visitors, let's say if they are French-speaking visitors and they don't understand English, I have the tourist guide there who can speak English or who can, in Mandarin or whatever, and it'll be translated live to this group of people who are, listening to the headset. The point being, does it replace the tourist guide? No, because the tourist guide is needed, the actions, the expressions and everything, it talks about, what comes out is the authenticity of the storytelling, which you need a human to do it. But then again, the understanding is breached when you have technology like that, reaching out to a much wider audience. So to me, it's limitations plus opportunities, leveraging on new tech like AI.
Spencer, do you want to?
Yeah, I'd like to build on Annie's point on augmentation. And just to give two examples, we spoke about how AI, what are some of the use cases that are scaling across Asia Pacific to drive more sustainable outcomes. And it's an interesting way of tying it back to this. One thing that we have a lot of, especially over the last 10, 20 years, is satellite imagery. And satellite imagery can be really helpful with climate change in a number of ways. One is, say, detecting wildfires, because you can see it from the space, but before it gets detected on the ground, and you can maybe do something about it. Or you have things like deforestation, hard to track on the ground, but from the satellite you can see. But imagine all the petabytes of satellite imagery being captured every day, and expecting a human or teams of humans to scan and look for what's changed. It's not possible. And so the use of machine learning and AI to actually look, oh, there's a fire here, it's spreading, or deforestation appears to be happening here. The system then alerts a human to say, you need to check this out. What's going on? And it drives the investigation. So that's really augmenting the ability to stay on top of things. And I'm just thinking of a world where medical imagery becomes really cheap, and you can generate scans of, on a daily basis. It's entirely possible, but you're never going to have enough humans to be able to look at all that and say, is something wrong? So I think that augmentation we have to think like in terms of really major shifts like that. And at that point, I think it will be very precious to have the humans then look at what the system is flagging as issues.
And Spencer, whilst you have the mic, one of the other questions that came up this year, and it was a similar question when we did the sustainability focus last year, was just where we sit today, there's such massive energy consumption that's being used with the data centers that you need in order to use these tools. And so the more that everybody uses these tools, the more heat that's likely to be produced and the likely compounding effect of that. we were speaking over lunch around some of the things that you're observing around where we sit today, but where the world is moving to. Would you mind just sharing a few insights as to, when you think about it from your perspective, the future state? Like, where are we moving to? And should we be cautious around embracing these tools? Or is there a role that actually, as they are choosing the solutions, they need to build sustainability into procurement or sustainability into their thinking in terms of deployment?
I think for the whole industry, all of us, all the hyperscalers, are very acutely aware of the need to scale up this technology in sustainable ways. Because at some point, if you don't do that, there's a big debt to pay. And so there is a real emphasis on carbon-free energy. And the framing of it is that actually in developing parts of the world, you need more energy. Energy consumption is directly correlated to GDP or to living standards. And that's why China, India, Indonesia, there's a lot of growth not related to AI. That's growth in terms of energy consumption. The trick is, how do you break that correlation with emissions?
Yeah.
And it's a massive level of investment in carbon-free energy sources, whether it's wind, solar, but now enhanced geothermal, nuclear. It's all of the above in order to drive energy abundance, because I think human society is so much richer with energy, and part of that is going to be needed to drive AI. But again, to set things in context, AI is about maybe 1 to 1.5, well, all data centers, 1 to 1.5% of electricity consumption, and it might go to 3.5% by 2035. The biggest drivers are actually cooling systems. As the climate's changing and people are getting wealthier, what's happening there? Air conditioning units going up everywhere, and that's actually drove probably their estimates by the International Energy Agency, that probably drove half the increase in emissions in 2024 was just from incremental air conditioning.
Wow. Well, Jay, did you want to come in on this one?
Yeah, I just wanted to build on something that Annie was saying just now. That, when we talk about using AI and the challenge of adoption, it's a change management challenge. It's not really an AI challenge. And when we look at, the things around, earlier we were talking about the TPMS feedback, right? And the reason why no one gives feedback is they've been sensitized that this feedback is for show, is wayang. So I'm not going to do it. And until you experience a really good feedback from a manager, that's actually quite difficult, right? Because it's got to be critical but gentle at the same time. And then you understand, okay, this is a really good feedback, and that helps me grow. And it's the same thing with AI. Until you experience how the user experience can be really nice, there's very little kind of push to want to use it. And so you can have all the tools that you want, but if you don't think about that last mile of how do you get people to adopt it, to feel good using it, to be comfortable using it, you always have this problem where it's a shiny new thing. Yeah. Boss says use AI, or boss says innovate, so I do it, but then after that it dies after a while.
So Kok Leong, if I come to you on that one. So you've mentioned mindset on your slides. You've done some change management. You are the boss. How are you getting? Not the boss. You're enabling others. How are you thinking about it?
On this question, I have some thoughts on it actually.
Oh, please. Okay.
And it goes like this: writing is thinking. Writing is culture. Culture and thinking, human interaction, right? So the problem is, that's where my dread and hope comes from. The dread part comes from, is this going to replace thinking and culture? Not really, because if you can't write without using ChatGPT, sorry Annie, you still have to curate. So the work has shifted from writing to editing, right? And to edit, you still need to have a voice, an authentic voice. And so authenticity is the defining characteristic, right? In my case, it's authentic, professional voice. Thankfully, all I have to say sometimes to a question is yes or no. It's against the law, it's not against the law. But in your sector, in healthcare, you might need to control for emotions. I think Annie mentioned that. And that part of it is, if you fail to learn how to write, you better learn how to edit.
Yeah. No, thank you. And I think I could spend all evening speaking to you. You all have such wealth of knowledge, and it's wonderful to have this mix. And we're so fortunate to have each of you here with us today. If I could ask everybody to just show one more round of appreciation to this panel.